Um, I want to welcome everybody on this morning. We have a smaller group here this morning, and that's mainly just because non-NLG people didn't make it here. And then Jess, you did your mark on the attendance sheet?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, we will go ahead and kick off. Since we do have a smaller group, quick round of what's hot, what do you appreciate? And for what's hot, you can share something that's hot in the business or just a win that you've had so far since the school semester started this year. So what's a win for you personally that you can share with the group? And then what's something that you appreciate? Keep it fast though, 30 seconds or less, because we're going to dive right in here. Let me have us kick off with Taylor, and then we will go to Jess.
So sorry if you can hear any background noise. There's a road right there. But anyways, so what's hot is I had a vector train moment a couple days ago. I did an interview for like the last stage of a Procter and Gamble like 3-day little like summit camp that they have, and by the end of the interview, he basically was telling me that he was like gonna have to sell me the next 3 years to come and work for them. And like that he was gonna go and call HR and like tell them to like put me through for it basically. And so a lot of my answers were based off things that I've learned here. So back to train moment. And what I appreciate is just my circles of influence.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Yeah, that's great. It's always fun when you start going on those. Like I even had a conversation with Mason when you like, it's like, yeah, I know we say vector trained and like go through college and 5-star recruit, but then maybe there's like a doubt somewhere in the back of the mind. And he's like, yeah. And even Mason, I was just chatting with him yesterday and he was saying something similar because even though he's DM, he is a senior. So I've encouraged him to go on a little bit of an interview tour and check around. And he's like, yeah, like I, came in and I applied for one position and they said I was like a little bit too experienced for that. So they wanted to bring me in at the manager level for that exact position. And a lot of times it's cool to see like, oh, wow, this experience really does show people really want this. So thanks for sharing, Taylor. I love that. Let's go to Jess, then we'll go to Audrey.
What's hot is I finished my first round of midterms here and I did pretty well. And what I appreciate is Victoria B helping out with the Tampa team.
All right. On that note, let's go to Audrey and then we'll go to Victoria.
So what's hot is recently I applied to be an RA at USF, and the interview process, like it's what we do is like a mock interview called an intentional conversation. And it's like exactly the combo we have with like reps one-on-one. So
something tells me you did all right with that intentional conversation.
Yeah, it was pretty easy and I felt like really good about it. So I'm looking forward to hearing back and I appreciate just my friends.
Awesome. Let's go to Victoria and then we'll go to Anthony.
My answer is very similar to Jess's. I just had my test week and I did pretty well. I had all my tests. Now I'm done.
Beautiful.
And I just appreciate working with Jess and everyone who I'm around every day.
Awesome. Anthony, and then Chloe.
So what's hot is I got Growth to Success back on my Instagram, and I probably already have gotten more phone numbers than I did for the entirety of summer in the last 2 weeks. So
recruiting is back, baby.
Know it. Hot boy fall. What's up? And then what I appreciate is appreciate my parents.
Awesome. All right, let's go to Chloe and then we'll go to Nick.
What's hot is looking into schools to apply for nursing, kind of seeing where I would think I would like to go. And then who I appreciate, everyone here. I know for some of you, if you're like me, waking up this morning might have been a little hard. So appreciate everyone here.
Yeah, 8 a.m. on Saturdays wasn't that tough during the summers. And then you get into the fall and it's like 8 a.m. on a Saturday. But thanks, Chloe, for chiming in here. Nick, and then we'll go to Justice. Justice, thanks for being on this morning.
Yep. So Yeah, so what's hot is I have my first service call appointments tomorrow and Monday, so I'm excited to start doing those. And then I appreciate the business and what it allows me to do, and all the friends it's given me.
Yes, sir. All right, Joseph, take us home.
Yeah, so what I appreciate is that I finally have some Clearwater people on my team. Took me a while to get them in, so I launched some yesterday. And I appreciate Jess and Nick for Thursday.
Awesome. Did you end up staying with them, or and it's just
Yeah.
we were on the DM call and you said you were driving, and Jess is like, I hope she's not staying with me.
I was sick. That's the only reason why I would say.
Yeah. Like, sorry, I should probably add some more context to that. Ladies and gents, we will beef. Jess and Jelsis have beef. Two girls that have the most beef in the division for sure. I'm just kidding. All right, we'll dive into the day today. So, ladies and gents, I wanted to welcome you all. As you all know, like, this is a smaller group, and I make it invite only. And I'm never worried. Actually, today might be a little bit more fun because it is a smaller group. And I always invite certain guests, and then I think there's just some people that aren't here, which that's fine with me. I'll pour the people that are here today. So this is the group that, quite frankly, like the rest of the division, this part of TLA for me is more important than the rest of TLA, even though the other one's longer. The rest of TLA is really for everybody, but this is hey, everybody else in our division could quit. And if just this group were out for the summer, we would have a kick-ass summer next year. And I think you can look around the group and obviously see just that. So I want to welcome you all. I know I've been talking about it quite a bit. I know you guys have heard it pretty often, and I started talking about the last prep, but I've been saying the same thing: right place, right time. And Anthony just mentioned. I think it's important to note that, we go through ebbs and flows, and just like we've had the same messaging approach, right? Just as an example, and it just changes at times. If you remember last year, I know Audrey will remember this, not this summer, but the previous summer when 2020 was first starting, we were like, yeah, you'll typically get, maybe 1 to 2 responses every 30 messages you sent out. And everyone starts messaging SMRAs for the summer. And we're like, yeah, I got like 20 for the first 30 I sent. And it was just crazy out of the woodworks. Right. And then obviously this summer it was like, yeah, I sent out 100 and I got 1. And it was a little bit of tougher environment, and things are going to change and evolve, by the way, with all of our programs and with just the overall recruiting environment, and everything goes through cycles. But I really want to encourage you all, for a lot of you all, if you're on this call, you've kind of already decided that, what, I'm going to choose growth and I'm going to do the Cutco through college track, that like, I want to develop myself and build myself up as a 5-star recruit. And this is the vehicle that I'm going to use. And lots of people over the past 10 years have made that decision, saying, hey, you know what? There's a lot of other places I could go. I'm not like dumb to know that, like, hey, there are other environments and teams and cultures out there that are like Cutco and have similar things to offer. Not many, but there are some. But you know what? I really like this. I like the community here, and this is the right place for me. I'm going to use this as the vehicle that I want to use for the next couple of years throughout my collegiate time. But not everyone can say that they were there at the right time. And there are certain times that I think it's just better to be in the business than others. And everyone always wants to be at the peak, but the reality is, when you really get the most bang for your buck, the most experience, is when you are starting during a time period where there's a trial. And I've shown you guys the sales reports before. And that was an experience that I had. And I think it's an experience that a lot of you all can have. If you choose, and if you decide that, I'm going to use this for the next couple of summers and really begin to grow and develop myself with this. I want to talk about our growth initiatives for the fall. We have our management team, Anthony and Jess will be hopping on here for this, and Jelsis. But we have our signature event next week, which is the SLC conference. So everyone in the company participates in the SLC push, but and any manager of the company will be at the SLC conference, not branches, but any DMs, our entire executive team, basically everyone that has a significant role inside of Vector Marketing or Cutco Corporation, they'll be at that event with us. And we've been working throughout this fall on our growth initiatives, which is really number one, creating a higher quality, shorter training seminar. Yesterday, or was it yesterday? Thursday, our entire region had a training with John Berghoff, and Anthony was in that training. Joseph was in it. Jess was a little sick that day. I'll tell you guys what, there is such a huge opportunity for our training right now. If I could give our training a score on how it is to where it could be, I'd probably give it like a 3.5 out of 10, which is not common when I think about a vector marketing program. When we have programs, we rock our programs. You know, other companies other companies that are much, much larger than Cutco, if they even had like one or two of our programs and they were using them, they would be doing a lot more business. But I think our training has a long way to go. And the good news is there's a path there towards it. Our management team, Jess and Mason, have already tag teamed to create a shorter training seminar, and have already gotten it down to really where it's consistently 5 hours. Now, there's still some pop and results that needs to come from that as well. But we're working on not only shortening training, but increasing the productivity and helping to redesign the learning process that a representative goes through to help them understand, debrief, role play, and actually experience practicing the material throughout the training seminar. I think the product that we'll have by the time that you all start practicing training as we go into the end of the year is going to be something that a lot of people are really excited about. Another thing that we're doing outside of continual updates to the interactive demo, we just had a meeting, and there's a lot of exciting things that are going to be happening with that too on the company end. So one of the things that myself and Trey Ketchum, we had a meeting with Jeff Kunkel and with Fred Glazier last week. And one of the things we're talking about putting onto the demo is there's basically 3 demos. So where you can toggle between 3 different options. There's a beginner demo for brand new reps that just started, that closes on the homemaker. There's an advanced demo that is a triple close that does that. The video shows, it will go through names and uses, and it shows the complete set, the signature, and the homemaker. And then the reps close on a triple close on the options. And then a different demo for people that already own Cutco, to where they can show them flatware, cookware, and not walk through all the same things and put someone that's already seen a Cutco presentation through the exact same presentation again. That's just one example of 10 different things that we're working on. Another thing that we're really working on right now as a team is to create schedule system, management systems for reps. One of the biggest things back in the day that I used to do, I remember not being able to manage a representative schedule makes it really challenging. And by the way, that is why, even anyone have trouble or challenges this summer, tracking reps and holding them accountable and actually coaching them on their schedule and supporting them. It's kind of tough to do when you don't have a visual. And I mean, when I used to run a Wednesday or Sunday phone jam, let's say someone walked into the office first thing, high five, walk in the door. Hey, Joey, what's your goal for the day? Or for demos for the week? And they're like, 2 or 3. And I'm like, 2, are you going out of town? And they're like, no, I'm super busy. And I'm like, all right, come over here real quick. Pull out a schedule sheet real quickly. When are you doing this? What's your schedule from here? What's your schedule from here? 2 minutes later, oh, wow, I have 15 demos slots. I can do 10 at least. And it's not they weren't trying to get around it. I just convinced them. I mean, they genuinely were oh, wow, I could do a lot more presentations. I didn't realize that. I thought I was way more busy. They just didn't actually understand their schedule and couldn't have it visually mapped out for them in front of them like that. And that's the power of when you can actually do that. It's very hard to pull that off in virtual world. So we're working on actually having software where you can see all your rep schedules, where we can see when they're scheduled demos, when we can see their class schedules. It's all on a thing, and it can toggle. We can go in there and edit it, make Sunday PSPs a lot more of a breeze. So that's something that's in the works right now. And the last thing is something that some of you all are part of, and that's changing the culture in our division by developing some sales leaders and people that are going to go out. I would call a sales leader someone that is selling 25K or more, in the fall and spring, and 50K plus for the summertime. We have people on this call that is one of their goals and desires, is to create that for them. So that's a little bit of what we're working on here in the mix. And I share this with you because there's an opportunity for our future, the future of this business, to be better than it's ever been before. But there's always people that run with programs once they start. There's always people that really take charge. At the end of every summer, I had to do like an interview after I branched to talk about whatever that program was at the time. One year it was Facebook. There's this new thing called Facebook that we were using, and we could use it to recruit, believe it or not. And every year there's a new hot program, and these are some opportunities, but it takes people at the team level to be able to actually execute them. So I'm going to replay these slides. Were last week's or last month's NLG session, and I'm not going to go dive into them, but I do want to give you guys reminders. If you're thinking about round 2 and you really want to grow, I gave you all last time like four keys really. Number 1 is develop some self-awareness. Number 2 is be intentional about your growth. I'll give you an example of number 1. I had someone call me the other day and they said something along the lines of I don't know, they're just beating themselves up a little bit and pretty frustrated because they weren't on top of they just like, oh, I know my morning routine isn't great right now. I'm not really like waking up. I'm waking up at like 9 a.m. I'm doing things with my friends that like every night that I don't really like, probably shouldn't be doing. And I'm just not really like where I need to be. And, I think that person was like giving themselves a little bit too hard of a time. And I just reminded them that like, hey, think about where you were a year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years ago. Right. So in life is like a wave or a circle. When you have the same thing happen over and over and over again, or like the same thing that's constantly trying to be taught to you, like a lesson, sometimes that's just like a little bit what your life's supposed to be about. And those are lessons that you need to keep coming back to over and over again. And we do go around in circles, and we go into high points and we go into low points. Everything's a cycle, right? The difference though is that like some people just spin on a circle, and some people grow and become more aware. And rather than just spinning in a circle, that circle starts to go upwards. So yes, you do eventually come back to the same point in the circle. But if you're going upwards like a spiral, by the time that you get back to that point in that circle, you're in the same spot. It's the same challenge, maybe a different vibe or a different nuance. You're still in the same situation, but you're at an elevated perspective. You have a more awareness around that. And I just point that out to that person. I'm like, hey, like, yes, maybe this is a low period. And guess what? Those are going to happen. Like you're going to have those happen literally every year of your life. If not, sometimes every couple months of your life. There's going to be ebbs and flows. You're not going to be perfect, and I just gave examples of my own life for that too. I'm like, but the difference is like how much awareness you have around your habits. The fact that you are so like, oh my gosh, I don't have a morning routine and I blah, blah, like last year you didn't have any morning routine. The year before that, you would have been like, what is a morning routine? And so there's like awareness that's being developed. And so that's the first thing is you got to develop some self-awareness. Second thing is you got to be intentional about your growth. I will tell you all right now, you cannot just hop on these calls and then do nothing for months and then just hop on 4 calls throughout the fall and then think that you're going to go out next summer and do better than you did last summer. It's not how it works. You have to be intentional about your growth. You don't go to the gym 3 times and expect to lose 50 pounds or have a much different results or a much different body because you went to the gym a couple times. It takes consistency and it takes intentionality about what you're working towards. Third thing is that you got to be hungry for growth. By the way, I stopped tracking people down. So I gave you guys an extension for this, but if you didn't submit it, I'm not going to try to track people down for assignments. They're not for me, they're for you all. So, but for everyone that get to them in, it's being intentional about the growth and starting with here, being hungry and knowing that there is another level. This summer, I don't think anyone, like you look around the company, no one really led the company that much by our branch team. And that's why I said, hey, right place, right time, is because there's an opportunity to be the leader. There's an opportunity to be the influencer, to be that next person that carves the way for other people during a time period, especially when lots of other people aren't performing. Once one person starts doing it, everyone starts doing it. Once one person sees the light, everyone starts running over towards that light. So are you going to be the first one? And you got to start thinking about your vision for the future now. A couple other thoughts too, guys. I think it's more important than ever that you focus on your circles of influence, not just in this group, not just inside of our division, but also at school, and be aware of like, hey, who am I? Am I hanging around people that have qualities that I admire, that I respect? Am I hanging around people that, if I would swap places with them where their lives are on a similar trajectory and path of where I want to be, I know they're on a similar path. And it's just something to be aware of and think about a little bit more now than ever. I also think about our circles of influence inside of this team and this group, and knowing, by the way, that like I know everyone is here has great relationships with each other and as friends, right? But like, how much of like a leadership relationship do you all have with each other? You can't see my screen. Have you guys been able to see the screen the whole time? You guys haven't seen anything this whole time? What shows up when I'm on right now?
It just says Andrew Evans has started sharing screen.
Well, does this work? Nothing. You guys weren't going to tell me until the end. Share screen, share individual, automatically share desktop, advanced. I guess there's like a Zoom update. Anyone know? Desktop, you get nothing. Nothing. All right. Oh, I don't need a keynote. You had to update yours, Anthony, to fix it. All right. Well, whatever. We don't really need it that much. I'll figure it out before the next round of TLA. So, wherever I was. Oh, the slide that I have, it says abundant leadership. It says 1 + 1 = 3. And, the thing I think about is like everyone here is friends, but like how often are we co-creating with each other? Where like, hey, y'all's relationship creates more. It's not just, hey, 1 + 1 = 2. But it's like, hey, by us spending time with each other, by us connecting, by us being in relationship, by us two leading, it creates more than the sum of the parts. Meaning there's an expansion of, hey, this person, it's a synergistic relationship where more is created for yourselves, for the division, for others, by being in relationship with each other. And so one of the things that I want to do real quickly, guys, is I want to do a quick exercise. And we'll hop out into some breakout rooms here in a second. But this is an exercise that I'd like everyone to do to start thinking about, really what's your orientation and what could your path be over the next couple of years. So you're going to have to humor me for this exercise. And I realize there might be a couple of you all like where this is your intention and your desire and you're already thinking in this way, and that's great. Some of you all, this is the opposite of your intention and you're like, oh no, I don't have an intention of doing that. But regardless, I want you guys to humor me along with this exercise. So here's the exercise and here's the question. Question is, if you were here and thriving 5 years from now, what would you need to be doing? What would it look like? What position do you have? So the question is, if you were here, hear me, if you were here 5 years from now, so think fast forward 5 years from now, like how old are you? What position do you have? And what would need to be, what would you need to have happen? What would need to be occurring in your life and in that role for you to be thriving and really happy and excited that you're here? Okay, so again, prompt is, if you were here 5 years from now, think about a position or title and role, and you can share that. Of like, what role do you see? What role would you see yourself in? And what would need to happen in order for you to be thriving in that role? Thriving being financially, thriving being mentally, spiritually, whatever that looks like, whatever thriving looks like, what would need to have happen? So you might say, all right, I would be a district manager, and like describe it like, all right, cool. I'm a vet district manager. I'm $1 million producer. I'm doing XYZ. This is what I would need to have happen on my office and staff. If I was going to be here and excited and happy and thriving, like this is what my life looks like. And hear me and take 2 minutes and go through that exercise for a few minutes. I'm going to put on some music, and I'll give you guys a few minutes to journal. And then we'll link up and do some pair shares here. Now, can you guys hear music? About a minute and a half more. Try to describe as much detail as you can. You already kind of have it figured out. Add some more detail to it. You can think both personally and professionally. What would you need to have happening in your life? Feel like you are thriving in your role. About 30 seconds left. All right, and go ahead and close it out. We're gonna go to breakout rooms real quickly, share with your partner. And what I want you to do is have each person share 1 minute to share. So listen to the instructions closely. 1 minute to share for each person. And then the other person is just going to reflect back to them. No coaching or anything else like that, but just reflect back to them where you felt them come most alive and what they shared. That's all. So one person's going to share for 1 minute. Other person has 30 seconds to reflect back to them where they felt them come most alive or what they noticed from what they said. And then we'll switch. So we'll have 3 minutes total. Ready? All right, let's roll. And we're back. All right. How are the breakouts? Good. Let's have a couple people share. We'll get like, I'm probably gonna have like about half the group, maybe the whole group. We'll see. We'll get like 3 or 4 shares. What came up for you during this exercise? And if you want to share a little bit, so it's 2026. God, even just saying that, it's like, who knows what the world will be like at that time. Think about like where we were at the beginning of 2020 compared to where we are now. All right, so it's 2026. What are you doing? What's your role? If you were here, what would you have to have happen to let you be thriving at a high level? Who wants to share first? We'll go to Anthony, and then I'll go to Nick.
So for me, position wise, it was vet district, $1 million shipper. I want to have a good staff and a good culture. I also would want like the ability to be flexible with my time, be able to step away from the business if I needed to. Having just a good routine personally. And me and Nick had one, the same one. It was just being able to work with people that you actually love and don't have to worry about like making work feel like work, making it like a home and a fun feeling. And then just having like a consistent, stable paycheck.
Awesome. And what was the thing? First thing you said? You said what role? DM.
Oh yeah, DM.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add there, or does that feel complete?
I mean, there's probably a few other things, but for the most part, that's complete.
Awesome. What I heard you share I don't know, it seemed one of the most important things was just being able to have a place where you are thriving in terms of like just enjoying what you're doing and being in a community surrounded by people, which I think is a common theme for today. There's a lot of, they're calling this period the Great Recession. And one of those reasons is because I think COVID and some of the work from home life has made a lot of people be like, all right, I can kind of make money doing anything. If I'm going to be spending 70% of my life at work, like it might as well be something that I actually like have some passion or enjoyment around. Thanks for sharing, Anthony. We'll go to Nick. Who else wants to chime in and share a little bit? Justice after that. And then we'll go to Jess.
Cool. So I know for me, I'd want to be a DM, and like I would want to be like the top DM in the region. 5 years from now, I definitely want like a silver cup or 2 under the belt and like fighting for silver cups every year. Built up like 3 to 4 good branch offices. Like Anthony said, like working with people I love, still loving the business. Also put like making over 100K a year and like living comfortably, like being able to save money. And also being able to like travel freely, like almost how Mike has it, where like having a staff, like I think Anthony even mentioned this, like having a staff where you can step away from the business if you ever needed to. And then also if I was here in 5 years, just like doing really well as a district, I'd also want to be in like some sort of communication of like maybe being a DVM too.
Love that. Awesome, man. Thanks for the share. And definitely you can create like, especially the travel portion. Like I remember actually I had this question was asked to me in Olean, New York, when we were at a meeting with Jeff one time. And I remember I was talking about it. It was my first year. I was still in school as a DM. And that year I mean, I literally, in my first year as a DM, we shipped $1 million. I definitely made over 6 figures. And I think I went to Asia, I went to Bali, I went to like multiple different countries in Asia. I went to Europe that year. I went to like multiple South American countries. I went to like 10 different cities across the United States. And yeah, I got a chance to do that. The travel, if you like to travel, that is one big vector perk, not just because of only, all our trips that we have, which are great and awesome and baller if you've never been on one. But also the fact that there's flexibility around that where you can be able to run the business and be able to operate and choose some of the things too that lights you up. So thanks for sharing, Nick. I like the idea of being top DM in the region, a couple silver cups underneath the belt. And I also like that you're like thinking about even too, like, all right, cool. What does that look like in development and people that I'm working with and starting to develop other leaders inside of the organization. Thanks, Nick, for sharing. Joseph, you want to go next?
Yeah. So where I would see myself in 5 years from now, I'd be a vet DM. I would have a fully staffed office with AMs, SMRAs, PR callers. Just already have like set programs for all of those. That way they can like kind of keep each other up already, and just consistently be recruiting for them. I would have people set to do like active advertising and also going to events that schools host, like job fairs. Also talking to like high schools. I heard that like there's like the DECA thing that Mike has done before. I would have a culture where everyone on the team has a close relationship with me and with each other, and just creating an environment where they're excited about, going to meetings and just growing themselves, as well as planning like team night outs with them to enhance the personal connections. Personally, I would have a consistent morning routine and just have time in my schedule to really plan out like what my next week is going to look like and my next month, to just always know what's coming and just appropriately promote the coming events to the reps. But yeah, it's just basically just based on like giving them the best experience possible.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Justice. Justice, is there anything else that you feel like you would need to be like thriving at a high level in your life and to be experiencing in your role?
I think that just sums it up really, that I just want to feel like there's purpose to what I'm doing and that I'm just like being a good influence to the people around me.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Jess, you want to go?
Yeah, that was so cute, Joseph. I wrote that I would be a vet DM. I'd be $1 million manager. I would be obviously competing for silver cups every year, apparently against Nick Franklin, and having my eye on a DVM spot. I would have a DM office that could run without me with the development of branches and 1 or 2 DMs. I would be able to travel and create multiple passive streams of income for myself. And I have a culture in my office that's thriving, like really bringing back the old vector experience that I fell in love with. And I would have like personal boundaries for myself, not being in school. So I would have time to kind of go through my bucket list, and I would have a business that I would be excited to wake up to every day.
Love that. Yeah, Kathy, do you know who Kathy Kathy Kristen is now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Kathy was a DM in Miami before I took Miami. And she was a DM for many years before she became a DVM. I kind of hopped into DVM fast, but being a high power flourishing DM is one of the best jobs that there is. And she would like, I felt like she would probably only work like a couple months out of the year, shipped $1 million every year, had the craziest team culture. And I mean, she would like go on a couple month vacations, like 2-3 months extended, every year, and still find a way to be the #1 $1 million shipper and win silver cups, and just year after year after year. So I don't know, Jesse, your share just reminded me of that. So thank you for sharing. I also like that you mentioned even DVM kind of being on the radar, which I think for some of you all on this call, I'm actually surprised some of you guys didn't say that. 5 years from now, maybe not 2 or 3, but 5 years from now, that could be a possibility here. All right, let's go to anyone else does anyone not want to share? Just kidding. Let's get a couple more before we wrap up. Audrey.
All right. So everyone's been talking about management, but I think I could see myself more in like a CSP role with like running a mentorship program, being one of the top CSPs in the nation. I don't really know what that would look like in numbers, but definitely like over 100K personally in sales. And just like a pattern among most, loving the work that I'm doing. I think that's really important. And then just having like overall balance and a healthy lifestyle, a healthy schedule, surrounding myself with healthy relationships, with like friends, the people that you're working with, the people that you're mentoring. And then aside from Cutco, like I want to have several streams of income. I don't know if that's like owning property, maybe starting a little side hustle business, trading. I want to be a homeowner in 5 years, travel the world, invest, have a steady income. Those are just kind of like bullet points.
Awesome. Thank you, Audrey, for sharing. And yeah, I guess in terms of sales, by the way, the cool thing, like when you're in the CSP world, it's like the same equivalent of having CSPs as a DM and getting returning business. CSPs, like a big like part of what makes CSP being exciting is the residual component of it. And that is that like you build a big customer portfolio and client base, especially if you're in the realtor program, it's a different world over there. But a lot of the orders end up becoming residual orders. So Audrey, 5 years from now, you probably have $100,000 in like reorders every year that just like, like for instance, Jamie King doesn't even really work here anymore, but she still sells like $150,000 a year. But she works like a couple hours out of the year. She doesn't actually work. She doesn't do any appointments. She just like puts in orders throughout the year. But she's a stay-at-home mom, and she worked at Cutco for many years and has a business that just kind of does its thing. And she rides on with that. So that would be, you probably have that as a base at that point. That's exciting. Anyone else want to share before we move on here? Anyone else would like to be heard? Cool. We'll move on. I can't share my screen, but one of the things the reason that I do that, and the reason that I say, hey, 5 years and not 2 or 3 years, and thinking in that perspective, you really need to start from that place. And I'll tell you what, like, even when I was a DM but like not committed to doing this beyond college, so I was still a DM in school, but going through my decision process and interviewing other places, all these other places, when I interviewed with them, I wasn't thinking about what's going to be a good job for me right now. I was thinking about where do I want to be in 5 to 10 years? And whenever I interviewed somewhere or looked at an opportunity, I said, all right, cool. If I crush it and I thrive at this role, if I'm absolutely killing it and doing really, really amazing, what does my life look like 5 to 10 years from now? And is that the life that I like to have? I'm like, is that what I want to create for myself? If I go down that path and I crush it and I'm thriving, like, what does it look like to be in that role? What does it look like to be in that role? And so it was important for me to do that for other companies. It was also important for me to do that here and think about, hey, where did I see myself in 5 to 10 years? Regardless of whether you're here in 5 to 10 years, once you have a vision like that, what you're working towards and what you're building towards. And even if you're only here for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and you don't even make it to that 5-year mark, if there's something that you're actually working towards becoming and building, you're going to do a lot better along the progress, right? If you're just running the summer to do the summer, if you're just like recruiting this week to get kids into training and hope, like, see how it goes and maybe make a couple bucks, that's a lot different than, hey, I'm working on building this high-powered level district office, and I'm working on creating a schedule, a lifestyle where I have flexibility to pursue other streams of income, to travel, to do other things that are passionate about me. This is the team, this is the culture, this is what we're building. Like, when you have that vision, you have, all right, cool. This is what I need to kind of do next summer. This is what I need to do next summer to kind of start building towards, like, this is the direction that we're headed in. A lot of people kind of just like, all right, let's see what happens this year. Let's see what happens this year. And to actually have a goal or some sort of vision that's exciting will help guide you a little bit more in the day-to-day here. So we're gonna dive into the next section, and then we're gonna hear from Taylor speak and give us a little bit of our masterclass series debrief here on this summer. I can't show you any of my slides that I spent time making, so we're just going to dive into it. So the next topic is called "What Makes a Successful Branch." Now, I did orient a little bit of this message towards me expecting there to be some new people on the group, but most of you all are returning branches. So I think this will be a good exercise, and I can probably take this to a slightly higher level. The first question that I have is, what makes a successful branch office? What makes a successful branch office? So the first thing that I would say is we're going to talk about like the keys to success, but I would also say, in like your opinion, real quickly, just jot down like a sentence or two. What in your mind makes a successful branch? What is it? What would you call a successful branch office? What do they have, and what creates that? And I would think first, like, what is the purpose of branch? So your version of success is going to look different based off of what you view is like the purpose of branching in the first place. What does a successful branch look like for you? So, and I won't have you guys share those right now. Well, what does a successful branch look like for you? Next question is, and I'll just ask you guys, you can post in the chat box on this one. What is the purpose of branch? What's the purpose of branch? What's the objectives of branch? If you go out and branch, why? If someone asked you from the summer, last summer, why you branch, or why you would branch again, like, what is the objectives of branch? What is the reason that we do it? Post in the chat. Experience, money. Yep. What else? Growth. Nick, there's a different phrase for money. So I have experience plus, I would say money, but there's probably another word that I put there. Capital. What I have on my slide, okay, is experience plus profit potential. Experience plus profit potential. And that's an important distinction to make. Right? Because there's a difference between, hey, go out, branch for money, and go out and branch for profit potential. Because if you really, really need money desperately, then there's different ways to get money. Branch, you're not guaranteed to make money. You could potentially lose money. You could make a little bit of money. You could make a lot of money. I made almost $100,000 on one of my branches. I made $50,000 when we did 300 grand. And I had maybe triple the expenses of what they currently are in their model. And I still made 50 grand that summer. So if someone did that today, they'd probably make almost what I did in my record breaking branch, like 70, 80 grand, if you don't have $4,000 a month rent in Miami and other things along the lines. So, but the profit potential is what makes it real. That's what actually gives you the experience. It's the fact that you do have the opportunity to make absurd amounts of money, or you can make a little amount of money, or you can technically even lose money because you're actually paying real expenses and really running a like legitimate, genuine business. Not okay, cool, we'll give you a little kickback off these sales and you got it and just let us know what you do. Like, no, you're running an actual business where you're incurring expenses, you're running advertising, you're doing things, and there's an actual potential of profit. And by the way, that is when you go into interviews and start talking to people, like, that's the most impressive part. That's what gives you realistic, like a real ownership, leadership experience that most people really never have the opportunity to do until they maybe start their own business in some capacity too. But that's really the objectives of branch. Even this past summer, I think it's important. And I think people, if you went into the summer with the goal of like, hey, my focus is like, I want to, make a lot of money, and that's the most important thing to me this summer, then you may have been disappointed. But the reality is that like everyone, if you went out and branched last summer, I promise you got a lot of more experience than a lot of our other previous branches have ever. And now the experience was like, hey, we have challenge and adversity and a down economic season. How do you push through this? How do you survive this? How do you come out the other side in a positive way? And by the way, like that's really damn good experience. If anything, if you really want the most experience, that the tougher it is, the more challenging it is, the more adversity that you have, the more actual real experience that you're going to get. And then also I like a couple of things that I think Audrey posted it into the chat. There was the growing and scaling a business. So, the first time you run a branch, you're building a business. The second time you're growing it. And the third time you're really learning to scale it. There's different levels of the game. And this is something I'm talking about in general session TLA prep, is that each time you get to a certain level, there's a learning curve, right? So some people, the level that they get to is like, how do I get recruiting going? And some people never even get beyond that. And that's the first like lesson to learn and get good at. Taylor, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later today. But Taylor got off the summer really, really strong with a lot of recruiting momentum. And then she quickly ran into some other challenges and problems of like, oh, shoot, how do I manage all of these reps and people? And like, wait, keep that going. Why I do this? And also keep our sales report going. And then once you get to like that, now you're performing 30K, 40K weeks, like there's another new level of challenges, a new level that you get to where you have to operate differently, think differently, and learn new lessons and skills to be able to manage in that environment. And that happens at every level of the game. An office that's shipping 500 grand is going to operate differently than an office that's shipping $1 million plus a year. So I want to talk about what are some of the keys that actually makes a office not just successful objective wise, but successful in terms of, okay, cool. It means you get a ton of experience and you are profiting at a high level. What needs to happen? And so I want to open up a quick little discussion from you all. What are some of the keys? And I'll let you guys jot this down for 2 minutes. Like, think about it in terms of what are some keys to success? If you were coaching yourself before next summer, what are the things that you need to focus on as a branch manager or a person in a position of leadership in your office? What are some things that you need to focus on in order to make sure that you're having a successful branch? Successful meaning you're getting great experience and you are profiting, right? What are some of the things that come to mind for you when you think about that? And I'm going to have a share here in a quick second. I have a bunch of slides, but I'm not going to use any of them. We're just going to go around the horn on this one. So what are some of the keys to success? What are a few things that will do it? Jess said personal PR set, SMRA program, sales development. And yeah, you can post them into the chat. So personal PR set, SMRA program, sales development. Audrey said, Rita, recruit. What are other things to focus on? A lot of you all branched this summer. If you were going to tell Victoria, okay, cool. Victoria, if you're going to go out and branch this summer, here's exactly what you need to do. Big culture in a small time. Reps want to get their friends a team. Culture, expectations for reps. What Nick said. Consistency. Like that. Have fun, work hard. Yep. I'll tell you what, guys, one thing too, think back to when I ran branch offices in college, there's very few things that I've ever worked harder at in my life, period. And also, if I go back to like my Snapchat, which I don't use at all, but at the time when I was in college, I did use it. And it's funny because it's basically just filled with like memories of like, hey, here's you being a degenerate 4 years in a row on the same day. And then also during the summertime, it's filled with memories of being a branch and our office and our team, and I'll like some every once in a while just get like these memories and things like that. And yes, I worked harder. I don't, there's a few things I've ever worked harder at in my life. And there's also like few times where I've ever had as much fun as I ever had during those summers. When I look back at some of those videos and things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's like I get chills just looking at it. I'm like, dude, we had so much freaking fun in that office. Like that was one of the highlights, like literally highlights of my life, was being able to build that team and work with it at the level that we did. Target recruiting, leader mentality, good team culture, adaptation to change. So first, and this should be easy review for all of you all. How do you calculate productivity of an office? You guys can like unmute yourselves for this one where you get a little bit more like discussion based here.
Your PPR and how many reps you had.
So PPR stands for productivity per rep. Yep. How do you calculate that?
The average of like, well, you take how many you take what your office sold and divide it by the amount of reps.
Yes, exactly. So recruiting time sales equals productivity. It's the amount that your office sold divided by how many reps you had. So, when we look at the end number, which the end number doesn't mean everything, but it does show us a lot about the office culture, all those small things. If you ran a good office, like it probably has those components to it. It's just, hey, how many recruits did you have? How much did the average recruit sell? So it's your training and your sales development, and it is how many people did you actually recruit for the summer. So one of the big things that I have is like, hey, if you want to have a successful branch, like one of the focuses needs to be 100 recruits. If you recruit 100 people during the summertime, you will have a quote unquote successful branch. And here's the thing too, is that when you focus on recruiting, you can move either needle, right? So you can move the needle with recruiting, you move the needle with sales. Anthony's on this call right now. Anthony shipped, a little bit shy of 100K this summer, one SE2. Anthony, how many people did you recruit this summer?
We had a total of 9 people who sold.
I think it was 16 total. Yeah. And
yeah.
9 people in his office that sold. Okay. So that would be an example of, hey, really small recruiting, but he crushed the productivity side. And he had the highest productivity in the division, one of the highest productivities in the region with his team. Super high productivity for our normal standards, and everyone else's productivity this year was absolute dog shit garbage. But the good news is that, hey, Taylor's going to speak to us here in a second. And Taylor, as an example from this summer, had really, really bad productivity. Now, by the way, I'm saying this with the preface that so did the pilot, and we weren't any better. So are most offices in the company this summer had awful productivity. But she had 120 recruits. She had 120 recruits, and so it didn't matter. The fast start average for her office was $346, which if you would have told me, all right, one of your top branches has a $340 fast start, I would have vomited 2 years ago. But that was what happened pretty across the board for the company this summer. But she crushed recruiting. And so here's the thing is, if you have 100 recruits in your office, if you actually recruit 100 people for the summer, first off, you could probably check off the boxes of hey, I exhibited leadership and I impacted people. When you recruit 5 people for the summer, it's I might have impacted 1 or 2 people, but you can't say you impacted a bunch of people. So not only those, but if you have 100 recruits, right? And Taylor did over $100,000 in sales for the summertime, it almost guarantees you a successful office. It means, hey, you could have the rest of your office could be ran so awful, and you could have super bad productivity, and you're still going to have a solid performance for the summertime, right? And make an impact and exhibit a lot of the things that you want to. And if you recruit 100 recruits and you do have a good productivity, so if Taylor went out next summer and did exactly what you did last summer, nothing else, but just had a 1K faster average instead of 346 and a 2 to 3K productivity, then that's a 250 to 300K branch, from doing nothing else, not recruiting an extra soul. So it gives the opportunity to do that. So that's one focus of hey, if you really want to crush it, focus on the number of recruits. What's a couple other things that are hey, and this is probably branches from last summer, pretty critical to making sure you rock this part of the business or this part of the program if you want to have a successful office. You know, unmute or you can post in the chat. What's another couple of things?
Yeah, one thing I think Taylor did really well was like kind of like using all our resources right at the beginning to like get recruiting kickstarted. Where I think a lot of us, well, I think I did at least like try to tap into like all our resources for recruiting, like when things weren't going well. So I think just like kind of starting off with a bang definitely helps.
Yeah, you have to do a fast start, right? Just like when we say with reps and it's easier to make a train go from 40 to 80 than it is to make the same train go from 0 to 40, right? Gain momentum. Cool. What are some like functions in the schedule that's like you have to own this as a manager if you're gonna thrive or crush as a branch? PR calling, yeah, or the PR program, yeah, just in general, be able to duplicate people with the PR program. SMRA program, yep. Now, by the way, okay, we're gonna talk about the SMRA program a little bit today. You can have a successful branch, by the way, and not have an SMRA program. So the SMRA program is a way to get us there. But what is one number, and this is like a pop quiz, especially if you're in a position of leadership right now. What is one number that our branches completely miss the mark on? I would say this is the number that is the reason why our branch results were so, and not branch, district offices too, were so low this summer that caused such a recruiting low. Okay. Now, a lot of people are saying fire number or personal set PRs. Okay. Which here's the reality. The reality is that our branch team this summer in the region set more PRs personally than any other summer in company history. We did 10 times, we did way better with personal PR set this summer than any other summer that we've ever done. The reason that everyone had a low with recruiting was not from because now, by the way, if you missed that too, and you didn't get your personal PR set, then yeah, you really had a low with recruiting. Okay. But a lot of people got that done at a very high level this summer. Well, why did their offices kick ass is because it can't be just you. It can't be just you setting PRs. By the way, and the reason we say, hey, so the first key is to rock the personal fire number. You got to rock the personal fire number. If you don't do that, it's like, I mean, shoot, what else are you going to do? But the reality is that just rocking your personal fire number will get you an okay branch. And that's why we try to teach branches to rock the personal number. Because it's like, look, you could mess everything else up. And if you just do this, you're going to have an okay office. You know, you could pull off almost 100K office by just rocking your personal number and doing nothing else. But is that really going to create serious results? No. Is that going to be probably a successful operation for the summer? No. And Jess said it, it's the office set number. So the office set number, there was very few branches, rarely, that ever got to 40 PRs set for the cycle this summer. Very few. Taylor's one of the only ones that even hit that number once, let alone multiple times. Okay. In any other summer, if I didn't have someone if someone wasn't hitting 45 PRs consistently as a branch, then I would call them like a failed branch. Not like actually like, oh, you're a failure, but like, I mean, like they are failing to hit the minimum numbers and they're not going to run a successful operation that summer unless they can get to 45. Most offices didn't get anywhere close to that. Now, even though they were rocking their 20 and those 20 are better than, you know, not having 20, it's still not enough to have a full-blown operation happen in your office. So a big part is like you have to have staffed PR callers. And in my opinion, the staffed PR callers is more important than the SMRAs. Because SMRAs are for tapping into networks and helping plug you in. You can run a successful office, by the way, without having a single SMRA. Now, SMRAs are a great way to kickstart and jumpstart your summer and get to a place of momentum early on to tap into the networks. But it's not 100% necessary or required that you crush the SMRA program in order to crush your office. It is required. It is 100% necessary that you have PR callers that are staffed, that are setting PRs weekly in your office in order for your office to do well. And I think a lot of times we got so hung up on hiring SMRAs that we forgot about the whole reason that we need SMRAs more than anything is we need PR callers, we need trainers, and that's a good way to funnel them, but they don't need to come from SMRAs. So getting the office to 45 to 60 plus is another big key, not just rocking the personal set, and that's half of how you get there. But the other half of that is you have to have PR callers. And so one of those big things is like, hey, I know this summer we didn't have the results that we wanted, but it also should not be a surprise to anybody. Like everyone should know why. And it's the office personal PR set number. That is why there was a recruiting lull this summer, is because the majority of our offices across the company failed to get that done. When I was a branch, like in my office that we sold like 600, my office set 120 to 200 PRs a week all summer long. Like 100 was a low week. There was very few branches that even got to 100 this summertime. So that's one other thing to think about. Anything else that you guys would add? I have one other thought on this, and then I'm going to turn things over to Taylor. All right. So last thought that I'll give you guys in a big key that I think is important here is rocking the schedule. Rocking the schedule. Okay, so if you haven't branched before, there's a schedule that we will give managers. And this is one of those things that I'm still working with our DM team on and anybody. The toughest part about managing and running a business is managing and running yourself. That is the most challenging part about running a business, is leading yourself. And leading yourself is always harder than leading other people. If you can lead yourself effectively, you can lead other people effectively. If you can't lead yourself effectively, you can't do anything for others. So one of the big things that's like when you become a business owner, you don't actually have technically a schedule. You're not an employee. No one's going to call you if you didn't wake up at 8 a.m. or if you didn't wake up on time. No one's going to track you down and say, hey, Jess, you have to set your PRs or I'm going to fire you. No one's going to say, hey, you have to run this meeting or you have to get some recruits in the door. You have to send your messages that day. Everything's on you. And so one of the big things that's like, whenever you have more freedom in your schedule, you've got to get better at time management and at scheduling yourself as an employee. You know, one of the things Kyle Lopes hopped on our call the other day, and his schedule is literally insane. I mean, it's just from the morning. I mean, if I could show you guys a visual photo of his schedule, it's pretty ridiculous. And I'll just actually, I will show you guys that photo. Let me see. I think Mike sent it into our DM chat here a little bit ago. Give me 3 seconds. 3, 2. Here it is. I can't share my screen. Damn it. Oh man. All right. Jess, you want to maybe, should I just I'll forward this to NLG. All right. So I sent the photo into the chat. You can kind of get an idea of it. That's his weekly schedule. That's in September, by the way. That's not even during the summertime. Okay. And that's just an example though. It's like, hey, he's rocking a schedule. He's executing. And it's like, he knows that every 15-minute increment what he needs to be doing for that day. The same way that you would manage an employee that you're trying to get high level, high power results, you got to give for yourself. You've got to have intention and direction going into the day. And one of the things that I'm telling you that is the fault of half the managers in our company, the reason they don't do well during the summer is because the schedule is right there for them. They just don't work the schedule. If you work the schedule, it's kind of hard to not have those results. They just don't work the schedule. When they're supposed to set 5 PRs, they procrastinate. When they're supposed to be working on XYZ, they're working on this. When they're supposed to be getting their first 2 things done, they table that till later in the day and then don't do the things later in the day that they were supposed to get done at that point in time. You got to be able to rock the schedule. I think that's another big thing of learning how to execute that at a high level. And to that point, I think Taylor is someone that did a good job of executing that this summer. And I know one of the things she talked about is consistency, and there's obvious opportunity to take it higher. But at least at the beginning of the summer, she was rocking it. And so I'm going to turn things over to Taylor here. And I don't have my pretty slide of you, but anyways, this is our first series of our masterclass series. So we're having Taylor speak this round, and we'll have another branch speak the next Saturday. And there's a lot of times that you can learn things from other people. I don't know how many of you all have gone like a call with Taylor and asked her to like debrief the summer with you. But after I finished the summers, I always had calls with the number 1, number 2, and number 3 branches in the company. And that is how I kind of jumped up from one level to the next level, was like learning from the other people that got accomplished the previous summer. So let's make sure we give her our full attention and grace here. There's gonna be a spot for Q&A at the end, but Taylor's gonna just talk to us a little bit about experience, her training preparation, and how she got off to a fast start last summer, and then we'll open things up for Q&A. But let's give her our full attention and be sure to be taking a lot of notes here as we get started. Taylor, welcome. I will turn things over to you.
Thank you. All right, so just going into what I did last fall to kind of set up for the summer. So I was super involved in Alex's office. I was running 3 interviews a week, as well as doing most of the post interviews for all of them. And then I was also making sure to sell during the pushes. I think I sold 8K during last fall. So like nothing crazy, but I made sure to not forget how to sell anything. And then I also was like sitting in on some of her trainings and running for the SMRAs, and then started and ran her SMRA program for about half of the semester, I think. And then someone else kind of jumped on board and helped, but basically learned how to set up an SMRA program and went through the process of figuring out the best way to manage everyone too. So that was definitely really helpful, because I wasn't doing it for the first time going into the summer. I just think that the difference that I did between the first and the second one is I made sure to build a culture inside of the SMRA program as well. And because in the first time I did it, like it went really well, but there wasn't as strong of a culture inside of like the SMRA chat, and, you know, making sure the PR coolers are in there as well, and making sure they're all excited about what they're doing, which I think really helped kickstart the summer. And then I also did have 10K in my withholdings so that I felt confident going into the summer. Not that I thought that I would need all of it, and I didn't, but just feeling confident going into the summer, I had 10K in there. And then what I did during the spring and going into summer to help bring summer forward is I kind of onboarded a couple of my friends to be PR coolers. And, you know, I started talking to them about doing it like very soon after summer ended, just so like it was in the back of their minds for like a while. And so I knew I'd have some people at least for the first 2, 3, 4 weeks to help out. And then I also actually had one of my friends be almost on assistant manager pay, setting like 30-ish PRs a week, give or take. So she was like consistently on AM pay, and then just doing that every week too, which was super helpful. And I just made sure that I trained her really well, so it would be, you know, worth having her there for the entire.
One question for you on that. So you had people already kind of as soon as you open up your office, ready to rock and roll, and a lot of these were friends just from school, but you had people staffed as SMRAs, PR callers, kind of assistant manager like types. At what time frame did you already have those people? Do you remember?
So I came home from school like mid-March, and then I started like fully doing recruiting operations like it's like the beginning of the second week of April, I think.
Yeah. So like going into, I just wanted to provide that context for everybody. So it was like going into almost the first week of like April, second week of April. There's 3 or 4 weeks technically before summer started. You already had PR, like trained PR callers and a team of people that you were already staffed for your PR setting, really going into the summer, like April time period. Right.
Sure. They weren't like the best or anything, and I like didn't keep them for super long, but it definitely just helped having more than just me calling through past PR lists, which is, I'll get into that in a sec. But Oh yeah, I also started messaging on Instagram like beginning of April, like aggressively messaging SMRAs on like my account and the business account. And then I was also targeting a few people from like January or February and just like becoming not friends with them, but like, Instagram pals. You like slide up on their story like every couple weeks. So that
Did any of
really
those people convert or into recruits?
into like, so I had my estimate, one of my SMRAs from the summer. She stayed the entire summer, and she was actually probably like, I didn't have that much luck with SMRAs at all, but she was the only one I had up until like July.
In terms of like some of the people that you were already kind of connecting with, like preemptively before you went into the summer on social media, did you end up recruiting any of those people into like sales reps or SMRA roles?
Yeah, her.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So that was one of your like kind of key people for the summer too.
Yeah, and I also realized like, like if going into like this following summer that like voice messaging on Instagram is like really helpful, because I literally did it like 3 times and I don't know why I didn't do it anymore, but that's how I got my SMRA too, by sending
Yeah.
her a message.
100%. I think that messaging is something that not a lot of people have explored, sending like an audio, but it's way more personal than a text message and copy and pasting it. When they can hear your voice, it takes out a lot of the sketchiness out. And it's like, oh, okay, cool, nice.
Exactly. Yeah. And like adding like something personal in there from that you see on their Instagram. I don't know. I feel like it could help a lot, because it takes more time to send it, but if people are going to answer a lot more, then it's worth it. And then to go off of what I was talking about with like SMRA and PR calling culture, I made sure that on most Saturdays I would hold a shift on my own Zoom and make sure that I was getting time to just like talk to them and catch up with them. And then every so often I would invite the sales reps to join too if they wanted to, so they would get to talk to sales reps as well. And so it was more than just like them seeing the recruiting side. They got to interact with sales reps every so often. So I would literally just like text in the sales rep chat and say, hey, I have a Zoom open for like my PR callers from this time to this time. Feel free to hop onto phone jam or just like say hi or do homework.
Awesome. Did you run most of your PR calling shifts, Taylor?
No.
Okay, cool. So you just hop on with it at the beginning stages.
Yeah. Like I did it on Saturdays.
Okay.
And then
Nice.
they had the divisional program Sunday through Wednesday.
Awesome.
And then sometimes
Just ask, can you expand on that? Just which one what were you referring to specifically?
I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah, she already expanded on it. I just want to know like exactly what she did to get the reps involved with the SMRAs and PR callers and like what that looked like.
Yeah. One of the things that I'll share that I know like Taylor just gave an example of is like, when you're a branch, you really just want to be thinking about building one team. Just one team. There's a lot of different departments and teams that you need to build, but like one team. So it's like, hey, connect your SMRAs with your PR callers, with your reps, with everybody. Like it's a lot easier to build and manage one team than try to build 4 teams at the same time and build a separate little SMRA team culture, a separate rep culture, and a separate thing here. It's like, okay, versus combine and connect them all and build one big team and culture that's excited about the bigger vision that everyone's working towards. So that's just an example I think Taylor did. Taylor, you can continue.
So hold on, I'm trying to read what I wrote.
Yeah, you're good. We know we cut you off a little bit.
Okay, so Andrew gave me questions, so I'm trying to like read the question he asked me. Okay, anyways, so basically the way that I started recruiting in my office was I got a couple of my friends and me to just kind of sit and call through all the old PR lists that we had, like every single one of them. I actually don't really know how many it was, just because my system was connected with North Fayetteville, so they kind of just told us half and half and gave us lists. So I actually don't know how many it was, but I want to say it was probably like 15,000. And then if I had like less, I'd probably just call them again or text. I didn't text them, so I definitely could have gone more in depth with those lists, because they're really helpful, because you can find really good people inside of them. And then
And Taylor's more convicted in that program, by the way, because that's exactly how Alex RS recruited her, from the previous summer. So what I heard a lot of this summer is like even I still hear it from our DM team is like, well, the lists are old. Are you sure it's worth calling? It's like anything that you do aggressively is going to be worth it if you don't have recruiting going right now. And is it the best thing? Like, no, there's probably 10 things that are better categories than going those. But if that's the biggest category that you have right now, then run with that. And you only have to hit it hard for what, Taylor, like 2 weeks basically before you had some recruits coming in the door and then just had other PRs to call.
Yeah, basically, because I started recruiting April 5th, and then I had my first training class the 21st.
Nice. Do you remember how many people you had set up in that first training class?
No.
Okay, cool.
No, I have no idea.
One of the things that will come out, and this is for everybody, we'll have something called the snapshot. They get finished in like October, November, but which shows a week by week breakdown of exactly how much you sold in your office and how many recruits you had in training that week, and also how many PRs you set for that cycle. So seeing those numbers like is one of the biggest things you can do if you're thinking about going out for round 2, and it's going through and like highlighting the dips. It's like, all right, look at where I was headed, and then I just let it drop off here. And then it's like knowing, okay, cool. Next summer, I can't right here, I let it drop off, right here, let it drop off. I can navigate the dips, right? And then take these ones a little bit higher, then boom, that's round 2. All right, Taylor, you can keep going. And if you want, by the way, I can also, I think you're on a roll here. I'll let you keep going.
Okay. So I did continue calling the past PR list whenever I had PR callers scheduled and they didn't really have a whole lot to do. Because that's definitely a kind of a difficult thing to manage sometimes, is scheduling the right amount of PRs each week if you have people to schedule. So I then also really spent time buying in the one SMRA that I had, and I wanted her to be excited about recruiting people and go the extra steps to make sure that the people are excited to be recruited. And so I kind of made sure to sit down and talk to her about what makes her excited the most, and she liked getting prizes, and so I got her AirPods and whatever, because that's what excited her. So I just made sure to make sure that she was excited throughout the summer, basically. And she ended up helping with some PR calling and some post interviews as well. That was probably something else that I did, is I ended up just having a lot of post interviews to do. And so I trained my PR callers to also run post interviews, because honestly, it's really just not that difficult to do, as long as they've listened to you do it and you've listened to them do it, and then that happens 3 times, then they're kind of fine. So I taught 3 other people in the office to do it when I just needed more help, which definitely helped with efficiency. And then because I didn't have real assistant managers, they were kind of just fake ones. So then something that I learned personally this summer was energy preservation. Otherwise you're probably going to burn out, which I did. And then specific business skills that I learned was how to manage a business in all the aspects that come along with it. And then everything takes more time than you think it does until you actually know how long it's going to take. So for example, you think that you have like this many things to do and it's going to take one day, but then you end up realizing that a million things like come in between it, so you need to schedule more time for those things. So that definitely took a little bit of time to get used to and learn how to do effectively. And then knowing what I know now, things that I would do differently in this fall and spring to prep for the summertime. So definitely learn how to take PDI better and how to just overall interact with sales representatives on a higher level, to increase my PPR, because it was not good. And I kind of went into the summer knowing that I wasn't that good at coaching. So it's definitely something that I could have caught before going into the summer, but kind of subconsciously chose not to. So definitely just paying attention to that in the future and things that my instincts telling me that I probably need to learn. And go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say time wise, we're on the end of it. So I wanted to let people reflect some of the things they're taking away. But we won't have time to go through all those questions that I sent you. So if there's anything else that you'd like to share to kind of tie a bow on it, and then I'll let reflect. But I want you guys to be able to get a break before we go into the next section.
Let's see.
Anything else that you feel like you missed?
One thing, I wish that I spent more time looking for SMRA candidates on target lists rather than having like an excess amount of sales reps, because there was more productivity getting SMRAs that way.
Awesome. Let's give some snaps and claps here for Taylor. I have notes, a lot of notes just from some of the things that she's sharing. Hopefully you guys do. I'd love to hear what are some things that you all are, and Taylor's someone that everyone knows here well. And you guys a lot of y'all watch and experience it side by side, but with like a little bit more reflection, what are some things that you're just noticing for our opportunities for yourself personally, or just takeaways from things that she shared of what she did? Yeah, Jelsis.
I really like that she mentioned like building a strong culture, like not only with the reps, but she also got like the SMRAs and the PR callers involved with the whole vision as well, which made them excited and retain them. And just the use of like her own networks as well, like using her friends and like people close to her. I mean, it is true, like, you know, we always say like birds of a feather flock together. So it's like she honestly, like her closest friends like from school couldn't have been better candidates to start like at least with PR calling. And yeah, also like just going through the old lists. I believe Taylor also was one of the people that were recruited by calling old lists. So it's like, it's just an example of, you know, finding like the diamonds in the rough. And if that's all you got at the moment, then just like, you know, making the most out of it.
Yep. Yeah. One of the things that Taylor did a really good job of is just getting off the summer strong. You know, a lot of people, what they did is like Taylor really, really aggressive. And this is what I always do when I would launch a summers, beyond aggressive for 2 to 3 weeks, going all out, spending money, lots of hours, staffing, boom, go hard for a couple of weeks. Then you have recruiting, and then you ride the momentum wave for the rest of the summer. And even then she let, you know, dip a couple of times. That happens sometimes too, but you're already, once you're going, you're going. A lot of people, they're like at like 60, 70% energy all through April, all through May, all through June, just trying to get the office going. And then it comes to June and it's like, well, I never really got it going. And that can happen, which is why it's so important to do a spurt, get the ball rolling. Once it's rolling, you can take your foot off the gas a little bit, right? Like, so here's the thing is how many of you all called old PR lists for much longer than 2 or 3 weeks? Right. Probably a lot of people did. A lot of our branches were calling old PR lists for 2 months. But the thing is, and even then, some of you all had less people on y'all's old PR list got called than Taylor's did in 2 weeks when she was hitting it really aggressively. She went super hard, go aggressive as possible, get some people in the training. From there, we can go and build, which is another thing I just want to echo that she did a really great job of. A couple other things that just other reflections, Taylor, or just back for yourself personally. or offering for other people, but Taylor, you can add it too. I was gonna say other people reflecting back to you.
Oh, there's one more thing that I completely forgot to add. If I was to like do something different, is they started talking about like that Snapchat program, and like none of us did it,
Yep.
and it could have been like really good.
Yeah, 100%. That was one of those programs that our region really didn't even get on. Usually our region's the one that started the program and everyone else is behind on. But I will tell you what, guys, there's always, every summer, no matter what, there's a hot move and a hot new program. And so one of the things, even with advertising, is that we didn't know what was going to happen this summer in 2021. We didn't know what was going to happen last summer with recruiting in 2020. We didn't know what was going to happen in 2019 either. You know, every year there's a different program. It's like, oh, Facebook. And then the rest of the company found out about Facebook after the summer ended. The people that were doing it during the summer just picked it up, rolled with it, and executed it, kicked ass. Then that one summer it changed to Instagram. It was the Facebook program in the spring. By the time we got around the summer, it was the Instagram program. And a lot of people are like, oh, I was using Facebook all summer. It's like, well, no one uses that anymore. So we were all on Instagram. The next summer it was like, all right, we hired SMRAs through Instagram. So there's always a new program. And it's really important. It's like I, as a DVM, cannot prepare you on what the new evolved thing will be in the spring, because it usually ends up coming out in May and June of like, this is the hot program. This is what's working. And I can't predict the future. I don't know what it is. But you have to have awareness of like, hey, number one, are you talking to outside offices that are performing and what's working well during the summer? Where's your circles of influence at? So do you hear about the things when they're happening? And number two, do you have the ability to adapt, pivot, and say, okay, I know I expected this to be the way the summer was going to go, but it's going this way, and I need to run with this storm, and I can adapt and pivot. And I think that's really great that you shared that, Taylor, too, because that probably could have been a massive move for your office and a lot of our offices too. Guys, was this helpful here from Taylor? Let's get some snaps here and clap. Taylor, thanks for bringing the good and being a leader here in the division. We're going to take 10. It's 9:50. I want to make sure you guys have some space to get off the computer, go outside, breathe, do yoga, do whatever. Try to get away from the computer for like the next 10 minutes. And I will see you all in here very shortly. Anthony, can you stay back for like a quick second to see if I can get this share screen thing to work? Okay, I'm going to close down the Zoom and then try to restart it and then just hop back up on the Zoom. Cool. All right, I'll see you guys. Talk to you soon.